most complete accounting yet of the high life of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas shows much, much more than previously known. More private jets, more fancy vacations, more sporting events, all gifts from mega-rich businessmen and documented through public and private records, plus interviews by ProPublica.
In fact, ProPublica is not letting up, and they're still publishing investigative reporting in regard to the types of luxurious gifts and travel that Clarence Thomas is gifted with. And even though most of this unfortunately seems like it's legal when it shouldn't be, the big question is his failure to disclose some of these gifts. Are there potential issues there? I mean, there are rules, he's supposed to disclose them. And the appearance of corruption is still pretty terrible. I don't know about you guys, but my friends don't spend that kind of money on me for gifts. They don't take me on luxurious vacations. But the latest report from ProPublica, the latest expose, which involved speaking to more than 100 witnesses with knowledge of these trips, found that the friends of Justice Thomas provided chauffeurs, pilots, airport workers, chefs, and also other high-end business executives. So from their digging, they found quite a bit in this latest report. Let's watch this video, which gives you some of the details, and then I'll fill in the rest.
Justice Thomas has been living a life of extreme luxury for 30 years, underwritten by at least 4 different ultra-wealthy benefactors.
Earlier reports have revealed lavish gifts to Thomas, including a house for his mother and this 9-day vacation in Indonesia from conservative billionaire Harlan Crow. Now the list of benefactors includes 3 more names according to ProPublica: David Sokol, Wayne Huizinga, and Tony Novelli. The report says the 4 moguls collectively treated Thomas to 38 destination vacations, including a previously unreported voyage on a yacht around the Bahamas, 26 private jet flights, plus an additional 8 by helicopter, a dozen VIP passes to professional and college sporting events, 2 stays at luxury resorts in Florida and Jamaica, and 1 standing invitation to an uber-exclusive golf club.
So the question is, why would these tremendously wealthy individuals who didn't have a relationship with Justice Thomas prior to him getting confirmed as a Supreme Court justice, why would they spend this kind of money on him? Why would they spend this money on his travel, on a home for his mother, all of these lavish gifts? Now, Clarence Thomas says there's no quid pro quo here, okay? There's nothing that these people are getting from me. I'm not giving them anything in return or in exchange for these lavish gifts. But really ask yourselves, why is he getting all of these lavish gifts? And look at your own life and ask yourself, I don't know, do people around you just gift you with lavish things and not expect anything in return ever?
So that's a great point. I hadn't thought of that. That ends the argument completely, if there was an argument. Has 3 different billionaires come and given you millions of dollars in vacations recently? Gee, I wonder why they didn't, and they happened to just coincidentally give it to a Supreme Court justice. I mean, this is a joke, right? But if you like jokes, I got more for you. I'm gonna go all the way to graphic 6 here because I love this quote from Clarence Thomas. This is before he got caught and people knew the vacations he was actually on. He said in 2020, I don't have any problem with going to Europe, but I prefer the United States. And I prefer seeing the regular parts of the United States. I prefer the RV parks. I prefer the Walmart parking lots to the beaches and things like that. There's something normal to me about it. I come from regular stock and I prefer that. I prefer being around that.
Really? He does?
Walmart parking lots. Walmart, 8 helicopter rides. Did you take a helicopter ride to a Walmart parking lot? Do you understand the level of mendacity here? These guys are giant liars and they're sitting on the Supreme Court.
By the way, let me just quickly correct something. So earlier in the story, I said that these donors or these incredibly wealthy friends of Justice Thomas had provided chauffeurs, pilots, airport workers. No, apologies there. in this report, ProPublica spoke to over 100 witnesses that included chauffeurs, pilots, airport workers, chefs, and other high-level business executives who shed light on the type of lavish gifts that he received. And just to also buttress Cenk's point about how ridiculous it is that he wants us to all think that no, he doesn't like the lavish things. He likes to chill in Walmart parking lots. Just want to give you this example. H. Wayne Huizenga, who's got a pretty incredible last name.
I got a fun story about him in a second.
I'm not even being sarcastic. I like that last name. Anyway, he sent his personal 737 to pick Thomas up and bring him to South Florida at least twice, according to John Wenner, a former flight attendant and chef on board the plane. If he were picked up in DC, the 5-hour round trip would have cost at least $130,000 each time had Thomas chartered the jet himself, and that's according to estimates from jet charter companies. Now, David Sokol also arranged for Clarence Thomas and his wife Ginny Thomas to attend University of Nebraska-Lincoln sporting events with all access passes. The group watched both the football and volleyball games from luxury suites. The football skybox, which typically costs $40,000 annually, belonged to Tom Osborne, a former Republican congressman who was also the head coach of the team for 25 years. And by the way, a lot of this stuff, I just want to be clear, there's no illegality here. Other than, I don't even know if it's illegal. I mean, he's supposed to disclose these gifts. He has failed to do so. I don't know what the accountability is. What is the enforcement mechanism? What is supposed to happen when these ethical rules are broken? But nonetheless, I mean, if you have a problem with this, and I do, because it appears to be corruption.
Of course it's corruption.
Come on, guys. Like
the biggest business owners in the country all happen to befriend Clarence Thomas after he gets on the Supreme Court and give him helicopter rides and 737 rides on and on and on because it's not corruption. They didn't want any favors in return. And then Clarence Thomas rules for business interests every time. And that's also a giant coincidence, having nothing to do with the fact that he's surrounded himself with billionaires. I'm sorry, I meant an RV park. I mean, maybe he thought the 737 was an RV, and with the chef on board, and maybe that's the kind of RV park that he's talking about. Look, I'm going to give you one from Alito, and Alito's relevant here to Anna's point, because when they all went into their confirmation hearings, they said, "Oh yes, we will abide by the ethics rules, and Congress can check us if we don't abide by those ethics rules." It's not a criminal violation, but it could be an ethical violation, which has a number of consequences, which, by the way, if it's corrupt enough, all the way to impeachment for Supreme Court justices. That's what he said when he was in the confirmation hearings. And now when they ask him, he said, no, I don't think Congress can do anything to the Supreme Court. He said, we're above the law.
I mean, Congress isn't even considering doing anything. Like, that's part of the problem, right? The corruption is so ingrained in our political system. In Congress, as we've talked about incessantly on this show, also in the case of the Supreme Court, where apparently you can receive all of these lavish gifts, skirt ethics rules in regard to disclosures about these lavish gifts, and essentially get away with it. And when reporters ask you questions about it, essentially laugh in their face or send them a sarcastic letter, essentially denying them any answers to the questions that they have. And I do want to just quickly say, as for whether Thomas technically did anything wrong, this is according to the reporting, while some of the hospitality, like stays in personal homes, may not have required disclosure, ethics experts say that Thomas likely violated the law by failing to disclose flights, yacht cruises, and expensive sports tickets. And the reporter for ProPublica who broke this story explains that in a little more detail in this last video. Let's take a look.
One of the striking things about this reporting is that there are very few rules for the Supreme Court compared to other parts of the government. I mean, we've spoken to federal employees who say they can't even let somebody buy them lunch, let alone a $100,000 vacation. But there is a code of conduct for judges that says you're not supposed to be taking gifts that would make a reasonable person think that there was something improper going on. And we've talked to, I think, 7 judges now from both parties who say they would never take anything close to this. Just violates judicial norms. And as a public servant, you shouldn't be sort of living the life of a billionaire essentially on the dime of people that might be trying to influence you, which is what we found is happening here.
And by the way, I mean, look, a lot of the focus has been on Justice Thomas. But if you have these wealthy individuals willing to shell out some pretty serious money for these lavish trips and gifts, I'm sure they're doing it with other Supreme Court justices as well.
Oh, of course.
So, I mean, are we okay with that? I'm not okay with that. The fact that the Supreme Court, relative to other government agencies, has very few rules in regard to this drives me crazy. That's unacceptable.
Guys, this whole thing's a freaking joke. One of those, some of those billionaires give to an organization run by the guy who helps pick these Supreme Court justices. He's the guy who basically runs the Federalist Society. They hired Ginny Thomas and pay her a really high salary for God knows what. So that's direct money into the Thomas family. It goes straight into Clarence Thomas's bank account. It's just a brazen bribe on top of all the vacations. But they go, no, Ginny Thomas, like Hunter Biden, is an expert on legal issues and this and that. Really? Really? Coincidentally, she is, and she's getting that giant salary. Look, bribery's everywhere. They're buying all the judges, they're buying all the politicians, and nobody's doing a goddamn thing about it. And finally, that brings us back to Alito. Did Alito partake in this? Of course, but he says it wasn't so bad. There was a reason why he took the expensive jets, etc. Alito noted that his flight on Singer, which is another private equity guy, Singer's private jet was not consequential because, quote, it would have otherwise been vacant and imposed no extra cost on Singer. You see that? Those private jets were flying around the country vacant anyway, and he just happened to get on a billionaire's private jet. I mean, you're all being asked to be on a private jet of Paul Singer, right? Like they're coming around and offering it to everyone, so Alito was like, oh, it's empty this time? All right, I guess I'll take it. These guys are laughing in our face. They're saying we're gonna rule in favor of corporations every time. They're gonna brazenly bribe us. And now Alito says there's not a goddamn thing you could do about it because we're above the law. And I'm not gonna listen to Congress. I'm not gonna get sanctioned. We're not gonna report any of these from our billionaire friends. And these are the guys who legalized bribery in the first place.
That's right.
Citizens United, they said corporations can give unlimited money to politicians. Unlimited money to politicians. So the guys who legalize bribery are not gonna be the ones that end bribery, okay? So the only silver lining in this entire story is that Huizenga might be a little bit out of money after he gave all this to Clarence Thomas. One of his top businesses was Blockbuster Video.
Oof, Huizenga.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.